Hi, this is Kevin. Welcome to my tutorial on how to run migrations that load data for testing the pagination functions that we're going to be building in the current week's work. Okay, now this used to be sort of a unit all in itself. It would take up a whole week. And here in the spring of 2022, I decided that it wasn't worth a whole week of our time. So instead of having you develop some code and have me give you some code, I'm essentially giving you all the code, and I just have to show you how to uh, put the code into the project and run it. Okay? So let's kind of understand the need for this code. All right, let's take a look at our project as it currently stands. Okay, let's start up the development server, and here we go. So this is the current state of our project, and if we look at the instructor list, you'll see that we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 instructors. And if you look at the students list, we've got 2, 4, 6 students. And we're about to develop pagination features for the instructor list and the student list. And we just don't have enough data to drive multiple pages for that. And so we need to load some more instructors and we need to load some more students. And the most effective way to do that, or one very handy way to do that, is using these things called data migrations. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's stop this. And let's go take a look at a part of our project we haven't looked at a lot, and this is migration. So we want to look at the migrations for the course info app. That's the app that we're authoring. So there's a migrations subfolder under course info. And in my project, I've got just 3 migrations, okay? You may have more. It depends on how often you run the migrate command. That's all that it depends on, okay? So every time it's time to do a migration, we run the command make migrations, okay? And when we do that, if there's anything to migrate, it builds one of these Python modules, okay? And then when we run the migrate command, it runs it, okay? Maybe we haven't been thinking about that, but that's the way it works. Okay, so in my project, I've run migrate for course info 3 times, and then it made the changes to the database. Okay, now it turns so if we look at this, let's open up this 0001 initial. Okay, so this is a migration. Migrations are best kind of divided into 2 types, a schema migration and a data migration, okay? All the migrations we've done so far have been schema migrations. Okay, we've changed our model, and what we want to do is we want to communicate that out to the relational database. Okay, in our case, it's this SQLite 3. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, it turns out that there's a feature in Django called migrations, and it's made easier by the fact that there is there's a package called migrations. Okay, So if you look at the imports here, uh, we have imported, well, I take that back. The package is Django.db, and we're importing two classes from that, migrations and models. Okay. And it turns out that there is a class that is a superclass that is called migrations. It's part of this migrations. Okay. And when we run a migration, we subclass it. Okay. And if you'll remember about superclasses and subclasses, really, despite the language of super and sub, okay, subclasses have more powers than super classes. They can do everything that a superclass can do. They inherit all of the data and all of the behavior of the superclass, and then they add their own. So that's what's going on here. And the big things in this migration are each migration has a list of dependencies. That's a list of the migration modules that have to be run before this. Okay, and since this is the initial one, it's empty. Okay, and then it has operations. Okay, and these are things that the system is going to do to, because it's a schema migration, these are changes that are going to be made out in the relational database to have it reflect the changes that have been made it in the Django project, particularly in models.py. Okay, so we're going to create a model that's going to create a table, and we're going to create another table so that the first one creates the course table, then the instructor table, all those things. Okay, so those are the parts, and you look at those parts and say, this looks a little thin for a program that I'm going to run, because it just really has two lists. And of course, lists in our mind don't create action. But the thing to remember is, because we are creating a subclass of a superclass, this superclass, migrations.migration, it has all the logic in it that runs the migration, right? So all we're doing is just kind of configuring it. We configure the dependencies and we configure the operations. Okay, so the first one that we ran kind of put all the tables out there. The next one that we ran, okay, under dependencies, it listed the first one. So that makes sure that we don't run the second one if the first one hasn't been run. Okay, and under operations, it just was two things. Here's where we added the ordering for course. And here's where we added a unique together constraint for a course. Okay. And then the last one that I have out there, and again, yours could easily be different. Okay. Again, the dependency, what has to run before this? Well, 002 has to run before 003. Okay. And then operations, well, we had more. Here's where we added a lot of unique constraints and ordering things to the model classes. All right, so what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to run I want to show you something else. I want to show you how do you get a handle on which of these have been run. Okay, well, if you type in, if you use manage.py to run the show migrations command, it will show the migrations for each of our apps. Okay, so we have a lot of apps. We have the built-in ones like admin and auth. Okay, but ours, course info, it's just got 3 migrations, the one that we saw, and they've all been applied. You can tell by the X, right? One other feature of migrations is that they're 2-directional. They're bi-directional, okay? Which means you can apply them and you can unapply them. So they're undoable. So at least in theory, if I wanted to, I could unapply each of these 3 migrations and go back to the point where I didn't have any external database. That sounds kind of risky to me. I'm not going to do it. But we're going to do 2 data migrations, one for instructors and one for students. And I'm going to show you and have you practice how you can apply the migration and you can unapply the migration. So we can add all of the instructors that we're going to use for testing, and then we can delete them. Okay, and we can add all of the students that we're going to use for testing, and then we can delete them. So one of the really nice things about this feature, the data migrations, is you can add some test data to your database, do your testing, and then let's say you're ready to use your database for production. Okay, you can just unapply the migrations and the test data will disappear, which is really pretty nice. Okay, so I've given you starter files. Okay, so there's a download. So, and you're going to bring down a file, EasyU test data migration starter files. I've already downloaded here for me, and I've unzipped it. And here's what's here. The 2 migrations, okay, so there's a data migration for instructor data, and there's one for student data, okay. And then I have a PyCharm project that I use to build the data, okay. And I'll show you a little bit what I did with it. But in case this is something you might want to use for your own project, well, I figured I would share that with you. Okay, so let's take a look first at this load instructor test data. Okay, so I'm just going to open this. I'm going to open this with another editor. I'm going to open this with Sublime Text. And that's because I don't want to add it to my project quite yet. Okay. So let me make this text a little smaller so it's easier to read. Okay. So what do I have here? Well, I've got pretty much a typical migration program. Okay. I've got a data structure in the beginning of it you're not going to recognize, but here, the bottom of it you're going to recognize. Okay. So I've got a class that I call migration, and it's a subclass of migrations.migration. Okay. That's what we saw with the ones that were automatically generated. I've got this dependencies, okay, because this was created for my project, which already has 3 schema migrations that have already been done. Well, I've been able to integrate this so that this claim that it's dependent upon the 3rd one, which is good because this is going to run as the 4th, okay. And then in terms of operations, okay, this is a typical data migration. It has one operation. It's called run Python, okay, which means it's going to run uh, Python functions that we write, okay, and we show two functions: add instructor data, remove instructor data. Now, look at how we code those. Do they have parentheses after them? No, they don't. So we're not calling these. This is more like what we did with functions when we were configuring the sort method of the list class to sort on a particular key. How did we do that? Well, we passed the name of the function to sort, and when it needed to do the key, when it needed a key for a particular instance, it called our function. Well, this is the same thing. We are configuring this operation, this run Python operation, and when it wants to add the data, well, it will call add instructor data. And when it wants to remove the data, when it wants to back it out, it'll call remove instructor data. So these are things that I've told you before. We'll kind of work on this inversion of control, or the Hollywood principle. Don't call us, we'll call you. Okay, well, we are configuring it so when the migration is ready to do these things, well, it will call the functions that we've identified. And then, of course, that means that we have to code add instructor data and remove instructor data. Okay, and these functions, the add function adds all the instructors that we want to add. The remove one removes them. Well, where do we get our data from? Well, pretty typically, these data migrations have a data structure that is expressed as a constant. So ours is called instructors. It's up in the top of the module, like a typical constant is. Okay, and this design of the data structure here, I didn't think this one up on my own. Okay, this is something that's been around Django for a while. Okay, and here's what we've done. We have created a list. Okay, so for each instructor we're adding is just one element of the list, and then within that element of the list, we have a dictionary with name-value pairs. And dictionaries are used quite often as a very flexible data structure where we want to pass data to some other program part. And one of the things that works out well is that when you're passing data, well, you want to say what name is it associated with and what's the data. So those are very easy name-value pairs. So for each instructor, we're passing a first name, a last name, and the disambiguator field. Okay, and you'll notice that I've set the disambiguator field to all these to the value testing, and that's because you don't want to be changing these test data entries because if you change them, when we go to back them out, it will blow up. So historically, I just would warn students, well, all those test instructors or test students that we added, don't go changing them. And what I thought of more recently is, well, let's just use this disambiguator field to clearly say that this is an instructor or a student that we're using for testing so that we won't be tempted to change it. So we don't want to change it. We don't want to delete it. We just want to leave it there to help us test the pagination function. So in the case of the instructors here, I've got 125 of them. We're going to do the same thing for students. And I used a utility program that I found on the web to generate these names. Now, I have to apologize. These aren't very inclusive names. The website I found to generate them, most of these are names that would come from England, I would say. I did find a site that would give me more kind of international names, but it was very hard to use, and I just didn't have the time to get it done. So for all of our international folks, know that I thought about you, but in the interest of getting this data out in time, I went back with the strongest of the test generators, and unfortunately it gave me all kind of British names. Okay? And this is true. We've got a bunch of British name instructors, and we've got a bunch of British name students. That's not true in the real world, but at least it was easy test data to come by. So what's happening is both when we're running the migration in the forward way, where we're adding the instructors, well, it's reading them from this list of dictionaries. And then when we run it backwards and we go to delete it, well, it's reading the same list. Okay? And I won't spend a lot of time talking about how the logic works, but I will spend some. In the add instructor data, first we need to get access to the model class in a special way. So that's what we do here. Okay. And then we iterate over that data structure. And what we do is that we check first if we already have that instructor there. We try to match on the first name, the last name of the disambiguator. We're expecting that it's not going to be there. Okay. And if it's not there, then we add it. Now, one of the interesting things is that we're adding it in an except clause. And this is, again, this isn't code that I invented, but more code that I borrowed. And then when we go to delete them, we just expect them all to be there. And then we go find the one that we're looking for and we delete it. Okay? So it's really that, so in the remove we're doing a delete, and in the add we're doing a create. Okay? So could you do this for your own data? Yeah, you could. Would it be particularly hard? No, I think you could take this same approach and kind of clone it. That's what I did when I built these. Okay? So that's what we have here. Now, can we just add this to our program? Well, here's the problem that we have in just adding it to the program. We want this migration to be kind of integrated into the migration scheme, right? If you look at our migrations at this point, okay, sorry about that. You know, we have a 1, a 2, and a 3, And we want to generate one that's going to be 4, but also has the dependency that says that 3 has to have run. So the easiest way to do this is not to copy in the whole program wholesale. It's to get Django to generate the shell of this migration. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. We're going to go down into the manage.py task. Okay, and again, let's do a show migrations. Okay, so we've got that. So we can see we've got 1, 2, and 3. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to get it to make the shell of the migration for us that we're going to use for instructors. So we're going to type in make migrations space. And now we have to tell it the name of the application, course info space. And now, in order to say, I just want the shell of a migration, and I'm going to fill it in, we give it the flag dash dash empty. Okay, hyphen hyphen empty. Okay, space. And now we want it to build the name the right way. So we say dash dash name space, and then we're going to call ours load instructor test data. This is load instructor test data. Okay, so that's it. So it's going to give us the right number, and it's going to add to the end of the name load instructor test data. So let's do that. Let's press enter, and it says okay. And you'll see that it popped up here. You can see I have an 0004 load instructor test data. Now I can tell you that that usually happens, but I've had situations where I've done that and it doesn't pop up. Okay, so if that happens to you, go up and highlight your project, you know, that line there, and right click, and then there's a refresh. Reload from disk. Okay, and if your newly created shell of a migration hasn't shown before, it will show that. Okay, so let's close all the tabs and open this one that we generated. Okay, 0004. And look, there's not much here. There's a comment that said it was generated by Django today. We have the import that we need here. Okay. And then we have the class migration subclasses migrations.migration. The dependency is properly coded. Okay. It says don't run this until you've already applied 0003 auto blah blah. Okay, and that was the one right before this. That's good. And operations is empty. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to take that code that came from the starter file, and we're going to copy it in. Right. So we're going to have to copy in some imports. Okay, we're going to have to copy in this instructors constant and the data structure that's there. Okay, we're going to have to copy in the two main functions, add instructor data and remove instructor data. Okay, and then we're also going to have to populate operations. Let's begin by populating operations. Okay, the dependencies look like they were good. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into operations. Okay, and as you can see, well, add instructor data and remove instructor data, well, they're good function names, but they don't refer to anything in here yet. And then I'm going to go up to the top and I'm just going to take everything here. I'm going to begin with the first import. I'm going to leave the generated to have the right tape. I'm going to start with my first import. And I'm going to go pretty far down. I'm going to copy everything that's not in the class migration. Okay, so just down to the beginning, just down through remove instructor data. And I'm going to copy that. And again, I'm going to put this, I'm going to leave that generated there. And I'm going to replace everything down to just before the class. And I'm going to paste it over top. Okay, that looks pretty good. That gives me too many lines before my class. All right, that's good. And then, of course, the dependency is correct. And I've already populated this operations. That looks good. And I think I have everything that I need. Okay. Now, if I look in the upper right-hand corner, I've got a check mark. Let's see if I do have warnings. Oh, they're typos. And, oh, I've got a line too long. Okay. I'm not going to worry about these. Okay. And I don't want you to worry about them either. Okay, so this looks good. All right. How do I run this? Well, I don't think I wanted to close that. Let's leave that open. Well, let's go down and work with manage.py, however that works on your machine. Okay. And the first thing we want to do with manage.py is to do a show migrations. Okay. And what we're going to see here is for course info, it now says that we have an 0004 load instructor test data, but there's no X. It hasn't been applied. Okay, so how do we apply it? Well, let's type in migrate space course info space, and let's just give it the number 0004. Enter. And let's see what it says. Target specific migration, running migrations, applying, course info 0004, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That means it ran okay. Very good. Now, let's confirm that with the show migrations. Enter. There it is. It's applied that. Okay. Now, whenever you write a data migration, okay, you also want to show if you've done the coding the right way, you ought to be able to immediately unapply it. Okay, let's look at that. So what we want to do is we want to tell it to migrate back to 0003. So migrate course info 0003. Okay. And you can tell it said it's unapplying that. Okay. How does it do that? Well, it runs that function, remove instructor data. Okay, and do show migrations. And you can see it's unapplied. Okay, well, we want to leave it applied, so let's migrate it again. Migrate course info 0004. Okay, and then let's go look at in the application. Let's do a run server to run the development server. And let's go look at instructors and see if we can see them there. And there they are. Now, they're a little ugly because they all have that testing disambiguator, and maybe I'll come to regret that. But I've had so many students who accidentally change these, and then when they go to remove them, they can't remove them, that I've decided that this is the safest thing to do uh, at this point. Okay, so when in the coming weeks, as we play with the test data, just don't make any changes to these things that have the testing disambiguator, and then you can back them out at any time. Okay, so that's working. Very nice. All right, so let's close that and let's stop the development server. Stopped it. Okay. Now, we need to do the same thing for the students, right? So, what do we do? Well, uh, next, let's just find our code. It's part of the starter files. Okay. So it's called 005 load student test data. And I can't emphasize enough that the numbers that you are going to be using for your project could easily be different than 4 and 5. It's just how many migrations you've done. So if you migrated several times, you could be up to 8 and 9 or 11 and 12. Okay, that's perfectly okay. Okay, so let's open this one and see what that looks like. I'm going to open it again with my Sublime text editor. Okay, and this is going to look very similar to the one that we just did. The names are different because I generated two sets of names. You'll see that the name that we use for the data structure, again, it's a constant, but instead of calling it instructors, we called it students. Okay. And if we go down here, if you look at the configuration of the migration class, the dependencies, in this case, the one from my project says 0004 load instructor test data, but we're going to generate an empty one again. And then, of course, the operations, it's a run Python and add student data and remove student data. And if you look at those, well, those are pretty much a corollary to what we had in the other one. And again, if you want to build these things for your final project, you can do this using a cloning approach, and to the extent that you need to understand this better, it's pretty well explained in the Pinkham book. Okay, that's where I got most of this code. All right, so let's go over to our project. And then again, we're going to go down to the manage .py, and we're going to tell it that we want to make migrations, space, course info, okay, space, dash empty, space, dash name, space, and then ours is called now load student test data. So load student test data. Okay, and it says it generated. And again, mine popped up right here. That's fine. But if yours didn't, remember to go up to the project, right click, and then I can never find it. Oh, reload from disk. I expect it to say refresh, but it says reload from disk. Okay? So I'm going to close the instructor one and open the student one. Okay? And there's not that much here. Okay? But the dependency is the correct one. Okay, and mine it's 004, but again, in yours it could be a much higher number. Okay, so that's right. The operations though, we don't have anything in there. So I'm going to go down to my, going to go to the program that I got from the starter files again, and I'm going to just take this operation, and I'm going to copy it into operations. Okay, so that's done. Okay, but the functions are not there yet. All right, and then again, I'm going to come over here, and I'm not going to copy the comment because that's a date from last year, but I'm going to start with my first import, and I'm going to copy down through all the way to just before the class, the migration class. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it over. Again, I think we're going to go right here. Okay. And that looks like it worked just fine. Yeah. Everything work at the top? Yep. Objects. And we've got the more current generated date. So I'm going to save this. All right. So now that I have it, I can come back down, go to the manage.py function, right? And let's do a show migrations. And you can see that 5 is not applied. So let's apply it. Migrate course info 0005. And it says that it applied it. All right, let's go confirm that it's applied. Do a run server and go look. And look at our students. And they're all there. Very good. So when you go on to the next part of this week's assignment and you do the pagination, you're going to have plenty of instructors and plenty of students. Okay, now just before we wrap up here, I'm going to stop my development server. Okay, that's stopped. And let's do show migrations to see that it's applied. Okay, so 4 and 5 are applied. It's possible to unapply or apply more than one of the migrations at one time. So it's possible for us to go from where we are here back to 3, and from 3 all the way to 5. Let's show that. So if I want to go back to 3, I can say migrate course info 0003. And you can see it's unapplied 4 and 5. And I can say show migrations. And you can see that 4 and 5 are not applied. And then I can say migrate course info 0005. And you can see that it's applied 4 and 5. And I can do a show migrations. And 4 and 5 are applied. Okay, so you should have everything that you need to do for your project. Just kind of follow what I did and use the files from the starter files for the migrations. And then when you go on to the next part of the assignment for this week, and you need a large quantity of instructors and students in order to test the migration, the pagination features, you'll be all set. So I'm going to let you do that. I'll say bye until next time. Bye-bye.